Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to dive into what is honestly a massive, fiercely debated secret in the military world. When you read the news or study history, you usually hear about one of two things: the grand, sweeping visions of political leaders, or the gritty, boots on the ground reality of soldiers in combat. But how do you actually connect the two? How are wars managed behind the scenes, right in that vast, incredibly complex middle ground? Well, today's explainer is going to demystify a concept known as operational art. We're pulling from some genuinely fascinating military theory and strategy sources to see if this vital bridge between the war room and the battlefield is actually holding modern militaries together, or if, well, it's completely falling apart. Okay, let's quickly hit our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover 1. Strategy versus tactics. 2. Defining operational art. 3. The space and time matrix. 4. Does it actually exist? 5. India's ethical strategy. And finally, 6. The future of warfare. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Strategy versus tactics. Let's look at the extremes of warfare.
To really grasp the middle ground, we kind of have to start at the extreme ends. It's like looking at two entirely different worlds here. On one side, we have military strategy. This is the apex. It deals with the overall plan, the grand design, the big political goals. It's basically the practice of reducing an adversary's physical capacity and willingness to fight. But then, on the exact opposite side, we have tactics. This is the muddy, chaotic, actual conduct of battle. It relies on military science, employing men and material, using a combination of firepower and movement to secure critical spaces. Now, the core problem of combat is the massive gap between these two completely different realms.
Because look, at the end of the day, tactics literally come down to real people in the field. When we talk about all these high-level abstract concepts, we absolutely must remember the human element on the ground. These are soldiers executing split-second decisions under immense, unimaginable pressure. Tactics is the action where people live and die in combat. The threat and use of force is definitely not just some theoretical exercise on a whiteboard.
Moving on to Section 2, defining operational art, the missing link. So you've got these two extremes, right? How on earth do military leaders actually connect that grand strategy to the ground tactics? Well, historically, the answer has been operational art. Think of it like a missing link. You see, as technology rapidly improved in the 19th century, armies grew to unmanageable levels, and battlefields suddenly stretched across days, even months. To manage that sheer scale, commanders needed a bridge. Basically, the moment a commander arranges dispersed tactical actions in time, space, and purpose to pursue a strategic goal, that right there is operational art. To actually put this into practice, commanders have to answer three fundamental questions. First, the ends. What military conditions must be achieved to actually attain those strategic aims? Second, the ways. What sequence of actions is most likely to achieve that condition? And third, the means. How should force be applied to pull this off? The whole goal here is to create a paralyzing shock effect on the adversary, unhinging their balance and completely unnerving their higher leadership. All right, Section 3, Space and Time Matrix, the axes of combat. But here's where things get really fascinating. This operational bridge we just talked about, it isn't always useful. According to military theorist Nathan W. Toronto, its necessity depends entirely on two variables: space and time. Space just refers to the physical size of the battlefield. Time refers to the delay between a tactical outcome and the actual strategic effect. So, thousands of tiny skirmishes mean a long strategic time delay, while massive, decisive clashes mean a really short one.
And mapping these variables out brilliantly illustrates the whole concept. If you look up at the top right quadrant, that's a large-scale combat. Think something like the Normandy invasion. The battlefield is massive, the strategic time delay is long, and so operational art is absolutely crucial. You literally have to arrange all those complex actions to win. But if you look down at the bottom left, say a covert drone strike, the physical space is tiny, the strategic effect is almost immediate, and operational art is, well, basically useless in that scenario.
Which brings us to Section 4. Does it actually exist? Now prepare to have the rug pulled out from under you a bit here, because based on that matrix, there is an ongoing massive controversy dividing top military minds over whether this bridge is actually just a mirage. Take this incredibly bold statement from William F. Owen. He says, "The operational level of war is not fit for purpose. It does not exist." He and quite a few others argue that this concept isn't a bridge at all. It's actually a barrier.
This builds into some really sharp criticisms.
A lot of theorists argue that operational art was basically just copied into Western doctrine without the proper historical context. By creating this totally artificial middle zone, they argue it amputates tactics from strategy. It literally blocks the physical reality of the ground war from interacting directly with the logic of the politicians. Even worse, critics argue it allows commanders to claim they are working operationally just to cover up poor, muddy tactical decisions on the ground.
So why does this debate actually matter to you and me? Well, because this isn't just academic bickering in some university hallway. These theories directly dictate the lives and operations of soldiers deploying into combat zones today. If special operations forces feel they need to actively bypass the operational level to achieve their strategic goals, which some researchers highly suggest is happening, it means these abstract doctrines are having real-world, life-or-death impacts on the front lines right now.
Let's pivot for Section 5, India's ethical strategy.
So, if Western theory is facing this massive identity crisis, how do other major powers link their policy and tactics? Let's explore how deeply rooted cultural ethics dictate the use of force in India. According to Dr. Kaushik Roy, Indian strategic behavior is heavily shaped by Dharma Yuddha. It's the ancient Indian concept of a just war. This ethical code dictates strict de-escalation and defensive warfare, fundamentally restricting preemptive strikes, even when a tactical advantage is completely obvious.
The really crucial point here is how this ancient philosophy directly dictates 21st century warfare. In the nuclear domain, Dharma Yuddha translates to a strict no first use policy. The weapons exist purely for deterrence. In cyber warfare, cultural ethics restrict India to a defensive doctrine, entirely avoiding the peacetime targeting of civilian networks. And honestly, perhaps most fascinatingly, when it comes to artificial intelligence, this framework insists that lethal machines absolutely must be subordinated to human wisdom. It mandates a human-in-the-loop system, prohibiting fully autonomous weapons entirely.
And finally, Section 6, the future of warfare, the shrinking battlefield.
Whether you lean towards Western operational art or cultural frameworks like Dharma Yuddha, the way humanity fights is changing, and it's changing fast. The big overarching trend right now is the phenomenon of the shrinking battlefield. Remember that space and time matrix we looked at? The historical conditions that actually require the operational level are receding. We're seeing a much greater reliance on unmanned drones, and AI is drastically reducing the time delay between a tactical event and its strategic consequence.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. As artificial intelligence and drones continue to shrink both the physical space and the strategic time delay of modern combat, will the need for operational art vanish entirely? Will tomorrow's commanders still even need this bridge? Or will advanced technology just merge strategy and tactics into one? It's wild to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems that run our world.